How do you keep a business not only surviving, but thriving through major disruptions? Welcome to another episode of the Vital Strategies Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today we're talking about resilience, innovation, and evolving your business in the face of challenges. My guest is Nancy Cutter, the founder of Court Travel. She has also been instrumental in developing one of the world's largest travel consortia. When the travel industry was rocked by COVID, Nancy just didn't adapt. She pivoted strategically, setting up a consortia that not only protected her employees, but ensured her clients continued receiving boutique-level service with all the benefits of a large organization. Nancy will share some of her most memorable travel experiences and strategies for navigating the travel industry. If you're looking for inspiration on how to evolve your business and create meaningful experiences, this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Let's get started. Nancy, I'm excited about our conversation today, really for two reasons. A, I'm excited to talk to you because I think you're a tremendous businesswoman that has navigated the challenges of the travel industry really well and building businesses there. And then I'm also interested in just talking about creating amazing experiences. It's a part of what we think are the most valuable things in life. It's not a big bank account, but doing amazing things with people you love. So thank you for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm interested in sort of sharing our impressions of the world as it's reopened to us now post-COVID. It is a different world, and I think how people are looking at it has changed their views and perceptions.
Yeah. And so if it's okay, I'd like to talk about, you as an entrepreneur, because I think you whether you acknowledge it or not, you see these opportunities that sort of come in the marketplace. You've been in the business for 30 years. So, September 11, COVID, like both of those things had tremendous impacts. I'm sure there's been, other events along the way. And it seems like you take those opportunities and sort of reshape your business in a way to, and maybe it's out of just self-preservation, but can you talk through some of the changes you've made through most recently COVID and how your business evolved there?
So you're right. After 35 years in the industry, and I still consider myself incredibly young, so please don't prejudge with that number of years. But the one thing that I would say about the travel industry and a vast majority of my colleagues is that we have to constantly adapt to change. I know people in other industries are also adapting to change. We are very much influenced by factors that we can't control. I can't control security concerns, global events, weather, and issues that the suppliers that we depend so heavily on. So one of the things that we do is we constantly rebound and adapt. And adaptation has been critical, especially during COVID.
Yeah. And I remember in some of our previous conversations, you were talking about how, people couldn't imagine a world where, all you needed was a ticket. It didn't even have to be your ticket to get on an airplane. And now we look at what's changed after September 11th with all of the, security and the hassle that we sort of put up with there to travel safely. And so, it's been interesting.
Yeah.
So
I think another great example is how real. I think the population as a whole has a very short memory. Yes, you're true. A lot of people don't remember. Yeah, they have to be reminded that you could just board it like a bus or like a little commuter train or something. As long as you had a ticket, that was your passage. But it wasn't too long ago that you could actually smoke on planes. And so, think about the idea about how much we value air quality and the idea that you could be sitting 8 to 10 hours in the smoking section.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's another thing where personal comfort and comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think we've probably seen a healthy evolution with that. I can think back to when I used to bartend in, wait tables and, when I was in college, and it was like, there was a smoking section, but if you're smoking in that building, like everybody's in the smoking section, whether you like it or not. And so, I can't imagine an airplane, maybe they found ways to filter the smoke really well, but I think everybody was probably sitting in that smoking section. Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about the consortia that you developed during COVID? Because I think that's an awfully interesting sort of pivot, and then how that has developed since then into a part of your business.
So first of all, I'd like to sort of set up the sort of scenario, and that is that myself and my other business colleagues have been members of the number one luxury consortia in the world for probably anywhere between 10 to 20 years. We are dealing with luxury clients, and what we decided to create as a result of COVID was more or less an alliance of strategy, strategizing our best opportunities in what we felt was the darkest days on the planet. I mean, everybody was aware that somewhere around the last week of March, you had to close your office. We had forced stay at home. And in the travel industry, I mean, a lot of people on the front were very hard hit, but a lot of people don't realize that most travel agencies, travel advisors had spent weeks, if not months, planning clients' trips. And suddenly, as we were rolling into March, it was like, okay, April, things are shutting down. You're not going. We were very, very insecure as to basically how long this was going to last. And I remember for onwards of a year thinking, I'm living my life 2 weeks at a time. And I think that's probably really a good way to look at it, because I think if I had known now, as we fast forward 4 years into the future, we may not have been able to have dealt with it as well as we did. But somewhere around April, May, I was on Zoom calls with some really, really close other agency colleagues, similar size to myself. I have an actual storefront agency that you can walk into in Uptown Charlotte, very high pedestrian area. But we had to close that, and we were chatting on our own little personal Zoom calls with glasses of wine, sitting there trying to figure out how we were going to move forward from this, because
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that was critical, we were refunding clients' trips, but we still had to employ staff and had to pay them to refund and handle all that paperwork with actually negative financial revenue numbers.
Right.
And the other thing that happens anytime in the travel industry and other industries as well, cataclysmic events happen, there's a lot of shrinkage, there's consolidation, whether it's restaurants who go out of business or get absorbed into chains. And the same thing happened in the travel industry. A lot of agency owners said to themselves, gosh darn it, this is just too exhausting. I'm going to sell my agency, or I'm going to go work for somebody else. And so there were my other five very, very close friends scattered across the United States. We said, we don't want that to happen to us. We've worked too hard. So what can
Mm-hmm.
we do? And the number one thing that we said was, we want to protect our staff. A lot of us have employees, or we had independent contractors working for us, and we wanted to protect them. And the best
Yeah.
way we could do that was to provide them with the advantages that the larger agencies offered. And I'm talking mega agencies, the type that have 500 to 1,000 advisors. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot is lost in translation for the client sometimes when they're dealing with an agency that large. So we decided to said, could we do this? Could we do this? We were trying to think of examples, and there was no other example out there where we could form an alliance, bring our agencies together, unify our visions. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, only still work with the preferred suppliers that were within our larger consortia. And we do try to move away. We're not really a consortia, we are more or less an affiliation, where we're
Mm-hmm.
able then to pool our productive annual gross sales and actually tunnel them into a subset of preferred suppliers. Number one was to create better perks for the advisors and for the clients, and then also higher revenue yields.
Yeah.
And so, in doing this, by the time things started moving around in June and July, and the six of us were having clandestine meetings in person in the height of
Mhm.
COVID,
Yep.
trying to get into closed states. I probably shouldn't say that, so we could have in-person meetings to try and build a company for which the concept had never worked before. By
Yeah.
September, we were up and rolling, and we were quite excited. We were six agencies at that time in 5 states. And so we unified together, and we had approached our suppliers who were more than delighted if we could collectively bring six times the amount of revenue volume to them to
Mhm.
entertain our conversations.
I love it. And so one key thing that I think you've done there is you've looked at the marketplace and you said, look, we want to provide this boutique service, right? Like we don't want to give up what we can do for our clients when we have 1,000 agents. We like the sort of personal touch we can provide, but we also want to provide value on the, we'll call it the perks and the pricing, and also be compensated well for that as well. So I love how you sort of took the boutique model, made the affiliation, and were able to negotiate those new opportunities. So good for you. That's exciting.
Probably,
Can you tell us?
I will
Yeah,
say,
sorry.
one of the best things that came out of it too is, remember, employees were getting very, very, very depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Our advisors who were working with us were so excited and so positive because we weren't sitting around crying. We were actually trying to do something to make their lives better. And that created an energized, I can only say, energy amongst
Mm-hmm.
all of the six agencies, where they were like so excited that we were actually doing something and not just sitting back moaning,
Right. Yeah.
even when we
I love
didn't know
that.
what the future held.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So, can you tell us a little bit about your travel agency in Charlotte? The number of people, the type of client you serve, that type of thing.
Yeah. So anyway, we've been located in Uptown Charlotte, as I said, in a pedestrian walk
Mm-hmm.
area, and so many of our clients were uptown professionals. Charlotte is a banking city, and so we have lots of people in the financial sector,
Mm-hmm.
attorneys, law firms, and my agency has constantly evolved. At first, when we came up here in the '90s, we did a lot of corporate travel, but my true passion and love was international travel,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to provide those custom uh, tailored itineraries for clients. In the '90s, the airlines came and said, we're no longer going to pay you commission on airline tickets. And so you either do it for free or you charge a fee. And we were like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, what are we going to do? So that was number one change prior to September the 11th. So at that
Mm-hmm.
point in time, I said, this is great. Let's get rid of the corporate. And let's go ahead and focus on my passion, which is providing amazing experiences for clients. And
Mm-hmm.
so we get a lot of walk in clientele here, but over the past 30 years, it has been the referral. I have some clients who are what I call third and fourth generation that we've been handling now for 10 or 15 years, and we've never met them in person.
Yep.
And they live in Denver. Shortly before our call, I was trying to figure out, I was like, gosh, we've been handling these people so long. They live in Denver. I can't really remember how we all got connected. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we do. And so my agency is truly, it's a boutique agency. We work on an appointment basis. We have, there are inside advisors, and then we also have some independent contractors who, by virtue of their physical location, they can come into the office if they want to. They have a physical desk that they can use. But then they can actually then also operate and run their own individual sub businesses from their homes. And they are
Sure.
affiliated with my agency, and but still have all the benefits and the features and perks that we can offer them.
I love it. And I also think it's worth acknowledging, like you've developed some advisor training program for, advisors entering the travel industry. And I'm sure you probably did that out of necessity to just be like, okay, I need to get all this, knowledge and wisdom out of my brain into, a document that the new folks can take and run with versus me have to stand here and train them. And so, can you just talk a little bit about that as an asset for you, and how it helps sort of the advisors underneath you and out there in the industry like learn and grow?
So you were totally right. I've trained advisors for years and years, and you always are trying to sketch out how you want to do it. Um, so I guess it was about 2017. I started saying, okay, well, I'll just start off with like a little bullet list. And then
Hmm.
the outline started to expand, and I started to write paragraphs within the bullets, and the paragraphs ended up becoming chapters. And
Hmm.
before I knew it, at the end of a year, I had 335 pages in a Verdana 6 font, 23
Wow.
chapters. And fortunately, I do love to write. It's one of my side
Hmm.
hobbies. And then because I really wanted to create an organized way to be able to approach learning pragmatically, this business is very, very different from anything else that most people encounter. So, how we do business is different, and the procedures and the things that we're accountable for are different. And so, I wanted to really create something that was a foundation. And fortunately for me, I work closely with the Virtuoso Travel Network, who is our primary consortia. And they knew I was doing this. And in 2019, they came to me and they said, "We know you're working on something kind of special. Can we talk to you about it?" And I said, "Sure." And so anyway, we after about 6 months of negotiation, I decided it's licensed to the Virtuoso Network. And we decided that the best way modern learning goes is not with a book; it is modules. Um,
Hmm.
and so I worked with their production team for 6 months, and we created 15 modules on each fundamental chapter
Yeah.
and taking people from who have no experience. And this industry is wide open. In fact, nowadays, most of us actually prefer people who come from other walks of life, but with a
Hmm.
passion for travel. And so Virtuoso now offers this to advisors who are coming into the industry, and we call it Travel Basics.
I love it. Good for you. And I'm just appreciating from an entrepreneurial perspective all of the different avenues that you're finding to generate revenue, because I think about your industry, and like right now we're working through hurricane season, and I'm like, that has to be disruptive, right? Like anybody that's trying to go to Florida right now, you know, you're fielding those phone calls and trying to come up with alternative game plans. And then we see 9/11 and coronavirus and all those other pieces disrupting things. So it's like the more streams of revenue we have, the better. So just purely from an entrepreneurial perspective, I appreciate how you've approached the business there. So fantastic. Do you have any other thoughts or insights on just the business of travel before we move into the amazing opportunities you create with travel?
So I think, especially from the outside looking in, we are a very, very closed world.
Mm.
I think most people don't kind of realize that the travel industry actually is the largest per dollar volume industry when you think of travel, hospitality, airline, hotel, and so working with travel advisors, the number or the vast amount of details that we have to pay attention to is amazing. All the little tiny details from making sure that somebody's global entry number, TSA, but the
Hmm.
types of pillows they want, and dietary restrictions, and whether they have issues walking or opening
Hmm.
hours. We were just chatting with one of my advisors, just with a client who was thinking about going to Normandy Exactly, how many different venues are they going to need to have admissions for in advance?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's incredible. And I don't envy the hours that you probably have to keep. I think of some of my travel abroad and, it's middle of the night when I'm doing things. It's middle of the night here in the States when I'm doing things over in Europe or Asia or what have you. And it's when things go sideways, you're probably still getting the phone call like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing and it's somebody else's fault, right? The hotel screwed something up or the weather messed up some travel, and now you're having to deal with it at all hours of the morning.
well,
How do you navigate that?
I
Yeah.
do have a great example that just happened on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of showing you how we are pretty much have to be a 24/7 on
Mm-hmm.
availability. Not that we're going to be working that hard on the weekends or at nights, but I just randomly came home on Sunday afternoon, and I was going to go work in my garden, and I just glanced at my phone before I put it down on the kitchen counter, and I saw I had a text message from a client, two fathers who had taken their sons to Oktoberfest. And he said, "Hey, look, we just got an email from the airline that there are going to be massive lines for check in Munich, and they're suggesting that we get to the airport 3 hours early." And I just looked, and it looks like our departure time and our transfer isn't going to get us there in time. What can we do? So I immediately just picked up the phone. I called him and I said, "Gosh, they're probably being true because Oktoberfest is the last day. So everybody's heading home tomorrow." And sure enough, there were lines out the front of Munich for people trying to check in. So fortunately, I said, "Sit tight." I called my supplier, who their emergency line. I said, "Hey, look, can you schedule a driver for them and get them the driver to pick them up an hour early?" And drivers, this is the other thing people don't realize, private drivers are booked for specific slots of time. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, "Gosh, no, we can't do that. They're all booked up." And I said, "Not a problem." I said, "We are 12 hours from their pickup time. Is there a possibility we can get a refund and I will schedule something else?" And so, sure enough, they processed a refund for the client. We got them rebooked with another transfer, and they were able to make it to the airport on time.
Yeah, I love it, and it reminds me of a time we were in Greece and love Greece. The interesting thing was there was going to be some transit strike, and it was like, if I had somebody like you helping me navigate, hey, the transit strike's going to happen, like get to the airport early. That could have been beneficial because it created a little bit of stress in
Mhm.
our lives, like having to figure those things out on our own. So
Right.
yeah, that's wonderful. So I think this leads us nicely into the travel discussion. You've been to the four corners of the world. There's probably, when we ask you where have you been to, the question is probably better asked, where have you not been? So I'm excited about getting into that. But the reason I'm excited is when we think about the most valuable things in life, it's not a big bank account for our clients, even though they're making $1 million a year, a few $1 million a year, $10 million a year. It's like the whole point of making some money is to pursue this acronym that we call REACH. And so the R's for relationships, E's for experiences, A's for advancement or growth, C's for contribution. It's better to give than receive from our perspective. And then H is our health. And that has three components: our spiritual, emotional, and physical health. And so I look at travel and it can probably check all of these boxes, right? Like I'm typically not traveling alone. Like some of my favorite trips have been with our whole family. Like we just got back from Rome, this summer and took our three daughters and had a great time. So it's like all of those things are happening there. The relationships are deepening. The experience was amazing. We're growing together. I would say there's some contribution I'm getting to impact my kids in a way. And then how is travel not good for your health in general? So we can look at all of those things and I go, all right, this is going to be a wonderful conversation because Nancy's been everywhere, she's done it, and her clients have also been there. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about if you could outline some of your maybe favorite experiences, whether you've been there or your clients have been on. Because when we were talking, You had some clients. I can't remember where they're at. They were doing some amazing thing in Africa, maybe a safari,
Oh,
and then you mentioned like they're still on their trip and they're ready to book a next trip to see the migration of, I don't know, the gorillas or some, I don't remember which animal it was. And I'm like, this sounds incredible. And like, none of those things are on my radar. They should be. Like, I hear you talk about them and I'm like, yeah, I want to go on that trip. So can you talk us through a few of your favorite experiences, whether you've been there or your clients have been there?
well, first of all, I want to say that probably the biggest lesson that COVID has taught us is that we've always felt that the future within certain limits was always available to us, and that we would always be able to go if we had enough money wherever we wanted to go, whenever we wanted to go. And that was actually ripped away from us in COVID. We were told we couldn't do things. And the American public, especially, and other cultures, have become very, very resilient. And they have really appreciated the value of the option of that personal choice. And I have so many clients, whether they're 45, 55, 65, 75, or 85 now, who realize that the future is not a given. And there is, I mean, we expected a wave of travel when everything opened up. Well, guess what? It's not slowing down. And it's not slowing down even in face of, some financial insecurities and things like that, because people are realizing that what they want to do is first and foremost in their mind, and how they want to spend their time and available funds if they have it. And I think what's really great about travel is that travel and the experience of travel is available to people within all budgets. All budgets. I mean, you can have amazing experiences, going to Mongolia, for example, and you can do it not as much as you would think if you're willing to travel with certain lower category accommodations, things like that. Or if you want to, it can be top of the line private jet hopping around the world. There are lots of options. And you're right. We were talking about, I had some clients who were in Madagascar, and they were daily sending me pictures of these amazing lemurs and chameleons and everything they were finding in the bush and in the jungles of Madagascar. And then in the middle of it, and she was like, oh my God. So we've got to make sure next on our list is Uganda to see the gorillas. And you were totally right. People come back from travel and they really are thinking about their next trip. It's a positive experience. I mean, I like to say that sometimes I call flying as adversarial. I never feel comfortable until my plane is actually landed. So for those points of view, but the art of travel and the fun of being able to get to unique places and enjoying your time, like you say, with family members, good friends. I mean, I had two couples in here yesterday, and river cruises are fantastic for friend groups. 3 and 4 couples. That's typically what we see for river cruises. Nobody has to pick up the tab and they get off to go do things, but they get to hang around each other and have fun. And that's what being friends is about. Being good friends is you don't really have to talk about anything particular. You just like being in their company and experiencing places. And we've seen a dramatic rise in solo travel. So much so that new niches are being created. I like to say that COVID did two things creating solo travel. They unfortunately either lost spouses or being locked up with their spouse for anywhere between 2 to 4 months made them kick their spouse out. And now they want to be alone and do the things they want to do because they couldn't stand the other person as much as they thought. So solo travel is really a new emerging thing that's out there, and there's so many opportunities for people who want to be independent travelers, but just staring at the Eiffel Tower or some amazing monument or experience is hard to do when you're just by yourself. You want to share that with somebody and say, "Hey, look at that. Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing? That's really cool."
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about your process because I think it actually aligns very closely to our process. When I think about we're onboarding a new client, there's a number of different phases. We start off with holistic discovery. Like I want to know not just the financial piece of your life, but what's important to you because we effectively have an unlimited number of planning strategies, and it's like if I know your goals that are not financial, I can probably help design a financial strategy to help you like accomplish those. And then from there, we start looking at some what if scenarios. Like, okay, what if we were to try this? How's that going to work out? Then we get down to crystallizing the plan. Then we create a priority list of what we're going to attack first, and then we work on the implementation. It's not just here's the plan, good luck. It's like we're going to help you execute on all this. So when I see your process, I'm like, this sounds very similar to what we do. So it looks like you start off with discovery. Like let's understand sort of what your interests are. Can you walk us through what that discovery process looks
Well,
like?
I think you've just taken a peek at what we call the circle of the travel experience. It's, yeah, you are right. It is, you're right on target with it. So, obviously, the first thing that we'd like to do is get to know the client. Okay. And the best
Mm-hmm.
way to do that, I mean, I can have a conversation with somebody and they can rattle off 16 or 17 different things, but my notes might get sketchy or whatever. So, I realized long ago that things were best taken with a comprehensive background Q&A. And
Yeah.
you don't know this about me, Patrick, but I come from a medical background. And so I like to sometimes say, remember all those papers that you fill in when you go to the doctor and they want to know how many surgeries you had when you were 6 and your immunization record? We kind of really want to know the same thing. So we first of all like to gather through a very comprehensive Q&A not only the vital statistics, your birth date, passports, frequent flyer numbers, all that kind of stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
how you like to travel. And people these days are so motivated by what they see in movies and TV. I mean, I one time went to see a bridge in Sweden just because of a TV show I saw. And
Yeah.
so I understand that. So we want to know the motivations. We also want to know where they've traveled before. So my first question with you would be like, okay, tell me about what you did in Rome on this trip and what did you like the best about it? And what did you
Mm-hmm.
not like? Because anything that you didn't like is also equally important because those are things that we might want to avoid. We have a huge checklist on there with activities and interest. And somebody would say, like, well, why am I completing all these little check boxes? Well, we might know that destination better than you do. And if you
Mm-hmm.
told me that you have an interest in a certain area, and I happen to know that that is an option in that area, then I would love to talk to you about including it. So we do that. And then we also finish up with a very honest and open conversation about budget.
Mm-hmm.
I never know, no matter what demographic price range you're in. Did your daughter just get married? Did you put a roof on? Did you just buy an EV?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never know what has affected what you're setting aside. And remember what I said, and is that travel is available in virtually any level of budget. The key is matching the budget with the expectations of accommodations, transportation, whatever. If you want to fly business class, but your budget isn't going to support it, then we're going to have that come to Jesus chat
Yeah.
and tell you
That's
about
great.
premium economy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so we really do start with that, and we use that as our conversation talking point in a very
Mm-hmm.
in-depth conversation with the client as we then formulate then the plan for the trip. A lot of times, and we want to hear everything, but a lot of times people, I think, get a little overambitious and always feel like this is, oh my God, I'm going to get here. I have to do this. I have to do that. Statistics show that if you go to Italy one time before you're 45, you will return to Italy three times before you die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So the idea that when somebody says, "Well, this may be the only place time I'm going to go there," I we kind of sometimes look at that, but yeah, we're going to make sure
Hmm.
that what we're looking at for you is going to be good. And then you're right, we do then set on a very specific path of working. Is it cruise travel, is it independent, where we're going to be putting together hotels, transfers, drivers, guides, group tours, whatever the case may be, moving that through this travel process. And then honest to goodness, that window of time could be anywhere between 3 months to 2 years. I
Wow.
just confirmed a cruise for a client going from Papeete to Fiji for 2026.
Wow. That's tremendous. So I've got in my mind, I've got visions of maybe a couple different types of travelers, and you can correct this if I'm wrong. So some are very like, hey, this is what we've always done. This is what we want to keep doing, right? Like I'm going to use cruise as an example. I went to a cruise to um, Europe. Now I want to go a cruise, in Asia or to Alaska or around the Caribbean, what have you. Like I'm just sort of like the cruise. And then you have other people that are like, hey, I want to hear about the new amazing thing, and I want it to be less structured, where I can go and do and sort of plan on the fly. And do you see those different types of travelers, or are there like avatars that you generally see, and you're like, okay, cool, I know who I'm dealing with here, and then we're going to sort of design a vacation with these things in mind?
So I would say that cruising has a definite position in people's travel itineraries. People fall into one of two categories. They do not want to cruise, or they do like to cruise, but it may or may not be appropriate for that particular destination. I
Hmm.
think realistically, what we want to look at is what is the goal of the trip. Is it to expose your children to a different culture? Is it for you to have more cultural immersion personally? Are you trying to check off boxes to say, I've been here, here, and here?
Yeah.
And I will just say, going to your reach example
Hmm.
earlier, spiritual, emotional, and physical. Um,
Yeah.
in the past 5 years prior to COVID, what we call health and wellness was
Mm.
actually on the increase. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people now who it's not so much about actually how many tens of places that they see, but it is how much they can come back and feel physically enriched, feel
Hmm.
better about themselves. Spa vacations, and I'm just not talking about getting a massage. I'm talking about almost like camp for adults where, hey,
Hmm.
let's try archery today, or let's
Yeah.
do biking activities and hiking and things like that, where people come back actually feeling healthier than when they left. These
Yeah.
are super important. And then spiritual connections. People, we live such fast lives now.
Hmm.
Everything that we do is instantaneous, text messages, everything. I have a really unique niche, and it's a subset, and it's transatlantic long haul cruising. Now, I've been doing it for 25 years, and frankly, it's saved my sanity. So I do 14-day transatlantic crossings, and I have a
Wow.
lot of other clients who do them with me, or who do them on other cruises that fit their time schedule better. But they're typically 14 days at sea, no ports of call. And
Mm.
trust me, if you want to check, if even if you're a supreme type A like me, the ability to step back and check out and just
Hmm.
kind of breathe is amazing. Is amazing. Have time
Yeah.
to actually read a book when
Yeah.
we are using where we're using Cliff Notes.
Yeah. I love it. So I just went on this deep woods immersion. It was a weekend long, but we had to turn in our phone. Anything that beeped or buzzed or, we could turn on, we had to like turn it all in. We could have a journal, we could have a Bible, like we could have like some of these, some books, a few snacks if you didn't want to eat, whatever they were making over the campfire effectively. And it was wonderful. Like it was so refreshing for me. And I hear you talk about some of these like adventure travel type things where it's like camp for adults. And I'm like, I was ready to like, and I'm already just putting some things in place, some boundaries in place with my phone and some like, we'll call them software pieces that like don't allow me into my email over the weekend. Like I just don't need to be working all the time. And that's okay. I was trying to figure out how do I leave my phone at the office? And I'm like, well, I've got teenage daughters. Like I'd like them to be able to get in touch with me if they need me for something. They're driving. GPS is also another factor. I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts. I'm like, well, I would miss those components. But I think you're absolutely on to something with this adventure travel thing. And, to take it one level up, there's a couple books that I want to reference. The first one's Die with Zero, that I think the whole thought is like, why are we saving all of this money to pass on to our kids when they're 70, right? Like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like create experiences, enhance those relationships. They talk about relationship capital, experience capital. Like if you're going to give money away, like give it away now, impact those charities today. So love that book and everything. And it's changed some of our clients' perspectives. They're like taking all the trips now. They're like, look, we don't need another $1 million in the brokerage account. Like let's go do it now with so I think that ties in really nicely with what you're doing. And then another book is called The Comfort Crisis. And this is maybe on the extreme side of things, but it's these adventures that like an example is, so here's the outline. You have the 50-50 chance of completing the adventure with training. Okay. So like I'm trained for this thing and it's supposed to be hard. And one of the examples was like a rim to rim Grand Canyon hike, and it's not easy. I think it's like maybe a marathon one direction, or maybe it's both directions. I don't know, but you're climbing up the side of the Grand Canyon. So it's absolutely challenging. And I'm like, man, I'm looking forward to, doing some of these things. And I think that almost ties in with some of the solo travel stuff. My wife's, idea of roughing it is Holiday Inn. So there's 0% chance she's coming with me on something that I've got to sleep in a tent and hike through the woods and, do all those things. So, but I love spending time with my wife, traveling with my wife. I've never taken a trip without her, but it's like, I could see doing some of these like solo sort of like disconnected, things that check a lot of these boxes. So, I don't mean to get us off on, a tangent there, but I love all of the things that you're talking about.
Well, you bring up a really good point there that I just want to reinforce, and that is, and I used to use skiing as a great example. If you're a snow skier, and you are at the top of a nice double black diamond, or even if you're a novice and you're on a nice green and you're trying to figure out how you're not going to navigate that down, I consider that almost rinsing your brain of all previous stress because you're not going to think about work. You're not thinking about anything else except survival at that moment, which it could be just skiing down that hill if you're on a hike, and you're going like, okay, well, I've got 2 more hours and this is a treacherous path. I love to snowshoe. And so sometimes you can get on some very, very backwater trails. And I was just hiking in Colorado a few weeks ago and we were in these beautiful aspen forests and we looked down and we went, uh-oh, bear scat. Okay, we need to start talking really loudly. Trust me, I wasn't thinking about work. So it's that mental refreshing and it's a reset. The priorities change. Priorities change. And it helps you to put a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah, I love that. Very good. So I'm going to bring us back to our process, right? So we've done discovery. We start working through some design and budget and those types of pieces. Now the plan's starting to come together. And can you talk us through like what it looks like to sort of finalize the pieces? And I'm also curious about how you're introducing new ideas in this equation. Because what I want is I want Nancy's expertise. It's like oftentimes our clients come to us, and the reason they're coming to us is because they want us to share things that they're unaware of, right, and help them execute on that. And so when somebody goes through the discovery process, how often are you like bringing new ideas into the mix, going, hey, have you considered this location? It seems like it'll help you check a bunch of these boxes. I know that wasn't on your list, but things to think about. How often are you bringing that into the equation?
So first of all, the one thing I always like to remind people, and that is there's always a subset of clientele out there who's going to be happy doing these things on their own, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
With us, like investment managers, attorneys, other types of professionals, this is all we do 24/7. And good advisors stay on top of new products, new hotel openings. Just 20 minutes before our call today, I just had a top Parisian hotel in here talking to us about her property. 76 luxury rooms, some of the largest square footage in Paris. Now, this is great. So this is, we try to stay on top of current knowledge, understanding market trends. It does take time to understand, like when I'm looking at someone's budget or what they're going to do, I go like, yeah, we can do that. No, we can't do that. But understanding and staying on top of product knowledge is essential. So we spend, I'll put it this way, even after 35 years in this business, every day I learn something new. My mental filing cabinet on travel is probably spans 6 or 7 rooms at this point. So a lot of times it's remind myself of something that I kind of know I need to go ahead and refresh it. So when we talk to clients and we're consulting with them and we're working through some ideas, and I was having this conversation with a client yesterday afternoon about a southern France itinerary that they're going to self-drive, which is great. But we're going to get them a driver for the day. And I said, I tell you, she's like, well, we could self-drive. And I'm going like, well, fine. You want to do some wine tastings? We're going to do like 3 wine tastings that day. And honestly, you're going to want to drink some wine and enjoy yourself. And I really would feel better if we don't have you in danger of getting pulled. Because you did have 2 extra glasses of wine. I'd like for you to enjoy that. And by the way, did you know that you're going to be in southern France during truffle season? And would you love to go visit a truffle farm and see how the dogs actually go find the truffles? And she was like, oh my God. She said, we just had truffle pasta last weekend with some friends. She said that would be amazing. So once again, opening up, these are ideas and things that we know can be done. Maybe somebody hasn't thought of, or just being able to give a little bit of relaxing. They're still going to drive themselves and visit some villages on their own. I am very much an advocate of people having free time. And that's the thing, time to sit on a park bench and people watch in a different city. Not travel so blindingly fast that you can't appreciate where you are in the moment. And so that's good. So we will bring that. And like I said, we have lots of contacts, personal relationships that we have nurtured through the years. I work very closely with somebody in New Zealand. I might stay late tonight because New Zealand will be open about 6:30 East Coast time. And I know that I'll just pick up the call and I'll talk to Sandrine and I'll say, hey, look, I need a transfer and I'd like to get a really great hotel down on the Auckland Harbor for these clients who are coming in on a cruise. So anyway, so being able to do that. So these are the relationships that we've created through the years, which let me know who to call to get things done.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. So just thinking through the process, you've introduced new ideas. You've come to the conclusion on, okay, we've got a very clear outline for what the the travel itinerary is going to be, and we've finalized all the reservations. Now, as one of your clients, how do I get all this information? What comes to me so I can, look forward to my trip and make sure that I'm organized along the
So
way?
we do. So we currently do two things. So for a number of years, we've actually created custom bound booklets. There's a
Hmm.
customized page with pictures on the cover of the places that you're going to visit, perhaps your cruise itinerary, whatever. There will be all of your confirmations. We do everything in a calendar format so you know exactly where you're going to go. But we have all your confirmations. And one of the things that we do, which I mean, I'm a traveler, I'm gone 16 to 18 weeks a year myself. And the worst thing that can happen is for me to get to a hotel, walk up to the counter, and I go like, yes, Nancy Cutter, I'm here for a 2 night stay. And he looks at me, he looks at his computer, he looks back at me, looks back at his computer. Now I'm starting to get nervous. So a number of
Hmm.
years ago, we said, how can we eliminate that? And we said, I don't want my clients to feel that. So we
Hmm.
reconfirm all the hotel reservations 3 to 5 days prior to their arrival so that the hotel knows when the client shows up. They understand who's coming, special needs.
Hmm.
We just had somebody, we had a picture of their dog put in their hotel room because they're missing
Yeah.
their dog.
Yeah.
And hoteliers are real happy to do that for us. But I think the key here is so, but we produce booklets, and there's 1,000 things that we can tell you about converters and safety and how to use your
Hmm.
phone and what to take. So we have a lot of pre-printed advisories that we've also put in. But our real
Yeah.
jewel in the crown is our destination information. We probably have close to 6,000 documents that are detailed destination information. And we make sure that there's information on every place that you go so you don't have to take a travel book. So
Yeah.
we bind that together. Now, technology is moving along great. And we also now have the option, if our clients would like it, we can actually put that in digital format so you can pull that up on your phone or
Sure.
iPad.
Yeah.
So, where you can then have all of that information available to you. And if you need to, you can communicate with us by text. We
Hmm.
monitor when we handle flights for clients. We monitor the flights. Hey, you got a schedule change, or that's been rebooked. What do we need to do with that? I need you to go here. I need you to go there. So that we can stay in closer touch. So at this point, we handle the communication of final documents and that information, whichever way the client prefers.
Yeah, I love it. And you just reminded me of a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. The photo of the dog in the room is one of those things that is unreasonable hospitality. Like nobody expects that, and when that things like that happen, it's fantastic, and I'm sure it helps build relationship. And it really isn't that expensive, right? To
Uh,
to to go out of your way to be mindful of what's going to really
it
impact
just
somebody.
it
So
just takes
I love it.
time. So one thing I
Hmm.
do want to clarify, so that your listening public kind of
Hmm.
understands, the travel industry has changed. Advisors have
Hmm.
changed. We're no longer considered agents. Agents mean that we work for one particular company or one particular
Yeah.
entity. As advisors, we are really now more on the side of our clients in earnestly trying to find what is best for them amongst a selection of options. So,
Yeah.
advising. And the vast majority of advisors now, and my agency as well, we do charge consulting management fees.
Hmm.
And so those consulting management fees aren't charged until we have a mutual agreement that we're going to move forward with your trip. Okay.
Yeah.
Much like you would, I mean, go to an attorney to handle a will or something for you, those types of fees and things like that. And we do handle airline tickets for people. I mean, there's nothing worse than sitting on hold with an airline 4 to 6 hours to get a call center somewhere where English is not the primary language, and you're
Yeah.
trying to figure out what they're trying to tell you. So when we handle airline tickets for clients, we do charge a fee, and the vast
Hmm.
majority of advisors do as well. And that's really a cursory fee just to take care of the time that it takes for that to happen.
Hmm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
airlines also charge fees now if you pick up the phone and talk to them. So, right in line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And here's what I love about being a travel advisor versus a travel agent. And excuse me if I use that term, but I think of a travel advisor not that different than a financial advisor, right? Like we can wear in our industry, you can have two different hats. I can work over here as we'll call it captive to that particular company, and I sell a particular product, and the client's not paying me directly. I'm getting paid commissions, from the sales of these products. Now, it's really hard for the client to know if they're getting the best outcomes in that scenario. They might end up with it, but really, when we look at the data and how financial incentives shape the advice you get, it impacts it. And so I would rather pay you a fee and know that you're just going to design the best outcome for me, not necessarily get paid the most depending on, this hotel versus that hotel, this airline versus that airline or cruise or what have you. So I appreciate sort of that, we'll call it upfront, very clear, transparent compensation structure, because it makes a difference. So I do appreciate that. So I guess I'm interested. Let's say somebody's listening to this and they're like, "This sounds amazing." I don't know if do you want to walk through what your fee structure looks like so people know? I poked around on your website, and honestly, I felt like Nancy's undercharging people for what's going on and the value they're providing, especially the type of person that we're dealing with. I think they value their time, and they love to sort of find to use a strategic coach term, a who, not figure out how. Like I would much rather just pay you to design my trip versus me figure out how to do all that and probably get worse outcomes. So can you talk us through a little bit about, and you don't have to go through the whole fee structure,
Yeah,
but
no, I
maybe
mean,
high level overview?
so at a primary core, my fee is 500.
Mm-hmm.
Several of my advisors are anywhere between 350 and 500, depending on the number of people going on the trip. Mine
Mm-hmm.
actually will perhaps sometimes go up to 1,000, depending on, once again, the number of people involved and that intrinsic structure of the trip as
Mm-hmm.
well. We have a few other fees, like I said, the airline ticket fee. We try to keep it reasonable because
Mm-hmm.
perfectly, I mean, we may have some situations where people don't have problems, and that's fine. Our fee is 10% of the ticket cost, but it never exceeds $100. So, and this is just something that we actually mapped out, did some percentages, and we figured how much time are we actually spending and how much would that actually cost us. So,
Mm-hmm.
as I explained it to people, if you had a ticket that was $790, then your fee would be $79. If your ticket
Yeah.
was $5,500, then it would still be only $100.
Yeah,
So,
I love that because I don't know how I've booked my own airfare for some business travel this year, and two times I booked my ticket on the wrong side of I booked PM versus AM. I'm like, no, I needed to fly out in the morning, and I recognize it when I'm checking in for my flight. I'm like,
oh,
this is not going to work. I need to hand this off to a professional. I would have saved money, time, hassle, just calling Nancy, being like, Nancy, please book my airfare, charge me whatever you want so I don't have to deal with it. So,
yeah.
yeah, that all sounds fantastic. So, okay, I love the idea of custom travel experiences, working with an advisor that's been there, done that, luxury travel all over the world. So, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So we try to make it easy. I have a very simple website. It's www.courttravel.com. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
on that page, like I said, I believe in full disclosure. You can't book anything on it because we want to talk to you. But we do have transparency with regards to our fee structure is detailed on there. There's also an initial contact form that if you'd like, you can complete. You just push that button. It actually goes to a secure server that we are then notified that someone's form has come in, and then we will retrieve it and then reach back out. Or you can just give us a call. We're located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and
Mm-hmm.
our number is 800-849-4231. And if you are in the Charlotte area, it's even simpler. It's 704-372-4231. So those are the primary ways. For emails and things like that, you can find those on our website. My personal email is nancy@courttravel.com. And then for general inquiries, you can reach us at contact@courttravel.com.
Wonderful. We will have all of that information in the show notes. So if somebody's driving and they need to look it up later, they can go check all that out. But Nancy, this has been fantastic on so many levels. I love hearing about how you've just taken the travel industry and evolved with it and found new opportunities in the midst of challenging times. And then I just love hearing about all the amazing things you're doing with travel and creating amazing experiences for people that check all the boxes. So good for you. Thank you.
I will say in closing that many people are stuck in jobs that they really don't like. They kind of not happy going to work every day, or they look at it as a job. I feel very fortunate. Many people in my industry never took this in as a first career. They kind of fall into it. After 35 years, I am still excited about going to work every day, and I feel so blessed to be in a global community of professionals and living just a super fulfilling and exciting life.
Yeah, and I see that, just spending some time with you, talking to you about the work you do. I see your excitement and passion for it, and then the fact that you spend so much time traveling as well. It's like you love what you do, which is wonderful. So I appreciate that passion.
Great. Well, thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Nancy. As we are getting our year-end tax strategies implemented for our clients, we wanted to give you the tools that you need to save big money on tax this year. To get access to those tools, to help create a strategy, go to vitalstrategies.com/cornerstones. Now, this offer is filling up, but if you're one of the first 100 people to register, we'll give you free access to the tools that our clients have paid us tens of thousands of dollars for. These tools are designed to help you pay less tax so you can build more wealth and live a great life. Again, that website is vitalstrategies.com/cornerstones. I want to remind you to rate and review the Vital Strategies podcast on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us towards our goal of saving our clients and listeners over $1 billion in taxes. These dollars are better used in your hands versus the government bureaucracy. Thank you for listening and for being a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities for your employees and driving growth. You're vital to your family, fostering abundance not only financially, but in all aspects of life that matter. Finally, you're vital to me because you strive to build wealth, make an impact for your business, and live a great life.